the full combo. DJ, bring the beat on. And here we go. Gather round the corner, have a man from here. See them guns and run, and watch the business be. Perfect. Where would you be now?
I said last time that DDRMAX was one of my favorite DDR games, but it was DDRMAX2 that is the first DDR that I played. And now that I start to look back between DDRMAX and DDRMAX2, I'm trying to think what would actually make one game stand out more than the other for me, and I really can't put my finger on what makes the game better. There are a handful of differences between Max 1 and Max 2 that would be very subtle to someone that didn't know the series or didn't play a lot of the games, but for someone that's played a lot of them, they can really see the difference. The first thing that stood out to me is the inclusion of a lot more songs with lyrics. And that's not really bad because pretty much every song has lyrics, but DDRMAX 2 starts the trend of American DDR games adding a lot more lyrical content to music instead of just good beats and nice rhythms. Now, these lyrical songs aren't bad, and in fact you could say some of them are better songs for the entire series, like Love at First Sight and Days Go By and Blow My Whistle Baby are very memorable. But for me, I really wanted those songs that had the nice beats from the first game, and there's a little bit less of them here, but still a good amount. Fortunately, that big transition into the Americanized DDR really doesn't happen until the next game in the series, which is DDR Extreme. Alright, all complaints aside, let's move on to why the game is a good game, and it goes back to what I said again about DDRMAX. The song selection is just so good. There's a lot of very memorable songs in the game that are some of the best that I've seen in the entire series. You've got classics like Breakdown,
Your performance is refreshing.
or Tsugaru. Afro Nova, anyone? And let's not forget all of Captain Jack's songs. And wouldn't you know it, they even redid Kind Lady.
He knew he had to try to let love in. Smile to let her know she was in this.
You move it.
So the soundtrack for the game is great, but half of the game is music, the other half is the actual set patterns. DDRMAX2 was a lot harder than DDRMAX1 because it did so much more. It was a lot more challenging. A few songs stood out as ones that did things that you didn't see in the first game. So take Captain Jack's In the Navy. Yeah, everyone knows the song, but in the game it used what would become known as gallop patterns, where it was a note followed by a quick 16th note that if you did it right, you had to sort of gallop from one foot to the next to get each beat. It was challenging, and if you didn't know what was going on, you would always get those notes wrong. But if you practiced and actually got it down, you actually felt like you were dancing, and it was really, really cool. Now, maybe I should have mentioned it before, but the only real way to play DDR is with Konami's DDR Mat. So if you're playing with your hands on a controller, you're losing a lot of the appeal to the game because it was a good party game. My friends and I would play this game every weekend trying to improve our scores and actually pass some of the harder songs. So in that respect, this was kind of one of the first party games I ever really played. We would go over to my friend's house and play the game over and over. And this is before the Rock Band and Guitar Hero days where it was okay to kind of go over and play a music game. So you had to go over and play and look like a fool dancing around, and it was all sweaty and it wasn't that fun to, not be good at it because everyone would look at you and you look like a fool. But that's why you played the game, so you can get better, and if you were man enough to go to an arcade, you could actually play in the arcade and really show off. I remember this one guy at our local arcade who was pretty much a legend because people would talk about him at school like, did you hear that he passed this song? And like you'd go there and sure enough there his initials were in the game cabinet. But no one really knew who he was, so my friends and I would just be like, we have to be better than that person, and we would try to beat this figment of our imagination. I don't even know if he was real or not, but that was always fun, and you can't get that experience now because there's really no more arcades to do that in. So DDR sort of brought people together, and it really revived that arcade atmosphere that made it fun, which is what, you know, games need to be. Anyways, I digress. DDRMAX2 is one of the best DDR games that you can play, and if you can find it cheap, and especially if you can get a pad, then you really owe it to yourself to see why this is one of the better games, music games I should say, that really was ever released on the PS2 or otherwise.